Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome to the Books That Make You show. I'm your host, Desiree Duffy, and we're talking about books that make you discover the power of good influence. Now, most of us have heard of influencers and have a vague understanding of how the entertainment world, celebrities, and philanthropical institutions and brands, how they all work together. We've seen that before, time and time again. And if you're in the business world or you work in any of these industries, entertainment, digital media, etc., then this knowledge can really help you and your company excel, creating and executing influencer-led cause campaigns that can tap into the exponential power of the influencer effect. Now, even if you're not in this world, aren't you even a little interested, curious to lift back the curtain and get a peek at how it works? That's where our guest today comes in, Paul M. Katz. He is CEO of Entertain Impact, and he spent over 30 years as a leader in both the entertainment industry and philanthropic spheres, bringing a unique perspective to more than 100 cause marketing campaigns that he has created with celebrities and cultural influencers. There's a long list. I'm just going to pluck out a few names that I personally like. Kevin Bacon. Who doesn't love Kevin Bacon? Ziggy Marley, John Legend, Mark Ruffalo, Usher, Annie Leibovitz, Desmond Tutu. Wow. Now, filled with extensive case studies, entertaining stories, and those professional insights, Good Influence is based on Mr. Katz's 5-part DREAM method, which I really want to learn more about. Paul M. Katz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat over coffee, so it should be fun.
Absolutely. Got coffee. I even got some Magic Mind. They sent me some of this. That's for a future. That's for a future episode, though. Okay. Can we hit the big idea first? This concept of dream. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. It really starts one step before, which is called the influencer effect. And the influencer effect is the impact that an influencer, which is a public figure that's culturally appropriate for the audience that you're trying to reach, can have if it gets behind a particular, in my case, philanthropic organization or initiative. It can apply to a brand as well. And basically the followers of that influencer will tend to mimic what that credible and trustworthy influencer proposes, shows you, supports. So that's the influencer effect, and that has a ripple effect. You know, we all influence our teachers, as parents, but these are really more public figures that have a broader reach. So after the influencer effect, you get to how do you reach those influencers with your causes, in my case, to get them on board. And that is the DREAM method. And so and you have to bear in mind these influencers, whether it's the Kevin Bacons of the world who we work with through his organization 6degrees.org, or a local influencer called a nano influencer. There's different levels of influencer, which might be a medical doctor that we've also worked with on a campaign for Alima, which is like Doctors Without Borders. They're getting inundated with lots of these requests, and they have lives as well. And so how do you really get their attention, get on their radar, and so that they have a passion for your particular cause? And so the DREAM method is designed to show you being, it could be a local community nonprofit, it could be a big nonprofit, it could be a brand. I tend to focus on the social impact and do good space. So that tends to be my thing. And so the DREAM method is designed not just to give you the knowledge and the information in a very practical way, in a very kind of entertaining way, because I come from the entertainment business of music and film, but also to instill confidence, because a lot of the organizations I deal with say, that's great, but you've been in the business, you know people, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of the people that I work with, I don't know from Adam or Eve. And so I want to show people that they can do it. If you're sitting in Columbus, Ohio, and you're working on working with, I don't know, a food bank, and you want to get the local folks there to, maybe it's the newscaster, maybe it's an actor who comes from there, maybe it's somebody who's on TikTok. I think you're on TikTok as well. So those kind of folk, if it's local, national, international, you can do it. So that's what the D.R.E.A.M method is designed to do. So I hope that gives you the background for it.
Definitely. And there's a few things I want to unpack there. I like the fact that you bring up local, because I feel that the local business is like, it just doesn't make any sense for me. Even if Kevin Bacon talked about my local donut shop, what does that mean? But you can definitely start small if you are a small business owner. And we also have a lot of authors who are listening and watching the show. They might think my book is very niche. So you can kind of drill into some of the folks that have these different cultural influences.
Yeah, and and I will come back to what the D.R.E.A.M method is in a minute. So I haven't forgotten the question. But there's like in Minneapolis, I think it's Minneapolis, there's a dance school there. Arthur Murray, I think, is the name of the dance school. And unfortunately, her husband died of cancer, and she started this local raise money for cancer. And they have a dance thing with local celebrities, and it's now in its 8th or 9th year. They have people from, I Think You Can Dance or American Idol, or but from the local area, and they've raised over $3 million. So it's very possible to do that. Local is good. You can make a big difference. Kevin Bacon's organization actually does a lot with local community organizations. I've worked with him on one called the D.R.E.A.M, which is a youth organization in New York that deals with LGBTQ kids and homeless kids and brings them in through music. And he's been very supportive of that. And then you get them education, health, and off to college. So back to the D.R.E.A.M method, yes?
Sure.
Yeah. So the D.R.E.A.M method is a very simple method that's been created through my work with Entertain Impact. And it's evolved over, I guess, 18 plus years now, which is how long the organization's been going. So we've refined it. It has these components. So D.R.E.A.M is design your action plan. Very simple. If you don't have an action plan, how do you know where you're going? Because they say that, who is it? The Chinese philosopher Lao Tse-Sung says that every journey starts with a 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. We provide the GPS that helps you also get there, because it's much easier than wandering around. So you have an action plan, and a lot of people know how to do that. It's not super difficult. What's your budget? What's your goals? How are you going to do it? And in the book, Good Influence, that's one of the main chapters, and gives some real examples. And you'll also find, I have a website called paulemkatz.com, and there's lots of free tools that you can download that relate to the D.R.E.A.M method generally. So that's the D, design your action plan. The R, which is really important, is research. That's number 2. So you mentioned Usher before, who I've also had the pleasure of working with. So Usher, who has got a huge heart, will be very helpful for lots of different nonprofits. But there are certain things that he really wants to be involved with. His son has type 1 diabetes. So something that relates to diabetes would be very meaningful to him. If you go to him and you talk about youth leadership, he has an organization, 20 years old now, that deals with youth leadership. So it's really a matching service, in the sense of your research should find the person, the influencer who is really passionate about your initiative and your cause. And it's not difficult to do. We have, the online search engines like Google. It's pretty easy to find out who it is. And that research is not the number of followers. It's great that Taylor Swift has got, 320 million, or Beyonce's got 300+ million. It's really, are they passionate about your cause? Are they trustworthy? Are they credible? Because a lot of research, and you find this in the book, this is the academic-y part of the book, shows that a Gen Z is much more likely to trust somebody who is an influencer than they are an advert or a brand. So it's really important, especially in the nonprofit world, where the average age of a donor, the clue is a Beatles song, will you still love me when I'm 64? That is the average age of a donor in the US. We want to get younger. We want to bring them in, and not just with a click, or a like. We have to really bring them in. So research is really, really key. I can't stress that enough. And there's grids and stuff on this website, paulmkatz.com. So that's number 2. Number 3 is really to educate and reach out. So your influencers that you want. Usually the ratio is, depending what the campaign can be, for 1 to 8. Like I reach out to 8 people for a social media campaign, I'm going to get 1 or 2. That's that kind of ratio. So you want several influencers, also for reputation, for availability, and also if you're looking for different audiences. So if I'm looking for a Cuban Latinx out of Miami versus a Mexican Latinx out of the California, LA, the Valley, I'm going to look for 2 entirely different people. So it's very important to get a mix of people. Plus, you have longevity with them. They'll grow with your organization. So that's number 3, is to how do you reach out to them? How do you ask them in a way that's meaningful? So you've already got an advantage. They're passionate about your cause. That you can get to them. Most cold emails happen to influencers. It's not like you have to be their best friend. You just have to make sure that you're aligned. That's really important. And so you write a very simple letter. And again, there's examples on this website I mentioned. So that's number 3. Number 4 is the activation. What's going to be cool? Are you going to do it professionally? They're going to want to know if their time, their equity in the marketplace, their reputation is at stake. They want to know that it's going to be done in a professional, respectful manner that's meaningful, that has impact. So that's really important. They're not commodities. They're people like all of us, and they want to give. Like we mostly all want to do that, but let's do it in a professional way. So that's really important. And then the last one is measurement, because like most people, we're here to make a difference. And whether that is in the commercial world with profits and working with employees in a good way, in the nonprofit world, we want to know 2 things primarily. One is the ROI. If I spend X dollars, I'm going to get a return that's better than that, because why do it otherwise? Well, there's other reasons like awareness and support, not just revenues, but generally that's going to be a big question. And I should just mention all of the celebrities and the influencers that we've worked with in the non-digital world have done it for nothing. So we don't pay people. I always forget that. I take it for granted that people would do it on a voluntary basis. So all the people you mentioned, not one of them ever got paid. They all did it because we identified what they were passionate about through their research. So if you were dealing with homelessness, Kelly Clarkson was homeless. If you want diabetes, Mark Cuban's dad has diabetes. When we did this campaign for the American Diabetes Association. So read that research. I'm going to go back to that. So that's the first thing, is the ROI. With social media influencers, the TikTokers, you're finding that they're gonna ask to get paid, but they're going to have a non-profit rate, which is much, maybe 1/10 of what they would normally charge, especially if they're creating something for you. So because sometimes they create content. And but generally, even they're beginning to be on board with the idea that this is philanthropic, social justice, social impact. Causes don't need really to be paid for that. And then the other part of measurement, which is the M of D.R.E.A.M, is why are we doing this? This social return on investment. Did I move the needle or help these organizations move the needle? And so I'll give you an example. You mentioned the late Desmond Tutu, who had polio, as does Itzhak Perlman, the violinist, Jane Goodall, all of which were Rotary polio ambassadors when we did that campaign over a 5-year period. And we had people as kind of high profile as Queen Noor and Bill Gates. And we had imams in northern Nigeria saying it's okay to get your babies vaccinated, as well as the Bollywood actors. And so there, you measure it different ways. You measure it, maybe it's money raised, maybe it's the amount of people that got vaccinated in this particular case, and this has got nothing to do with really, influencers were a very, very tiny part of this over a long period of time, but they were helpful in the public education sphere and raising money sphere. But India went polio free. That's that's the reason that Rotary, Gates, UNICEF, and all of those local organizations did it. We were a grain of sand on the beach, but we were on the beach at least. So you don't want to overpromise or blow up your influence, but there's definitely an SROI that one can look at. So dream, you can do it.
There it is, dream.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love the acronym, and I love the way it all comes together so eloquently. And you mentioned the monetary payment, because I think that's the first thing that comes to mind for most people is I'm going to have to pay big bucks for this. This is going to cost us. And especially if you are a smaller nonprofit, that can really break the bank. So it's great to know that a lot of folks will donate or get on board without necessarily wanting money. But then you also mentioned some of the TikTokers, because I know that world as well. It's like if you can get a hold of them, and it would be right. Lovely if they responded by email, right? But you have to find out how to DM them and where they're going to read their DMs. Even it can be hard just to nail them down. But they do. It's almost like an instant. Here are my rates. This is what it's going to cost, and it feels very cold and sterile. And yet, then you see them on the screen, and they're all happy, and it almost kind of gives you a negative impression when you think of how that that's bringing back the curtain and seeing how it works. And it almost can leave you feeling a little bit disillusioned.
Yes. I mean, well, let's go to, I guess we'll call them traditional influencers, the actors, the musicians, those kind of folk. They don't charge. Mm-hmm. You may have costs involved if you're traveling somebody to go and be at an event or go to visit a food bank or go off to India to look at polio. There's going to be costs, and there's definitely going to be time resources. So it's not something you can do flippantly. But if you build it up and you have a cohort of influencers as your ambassadors, there's a lot of data that shows how valuable that is financially in terms of earned media versus paid advertising. The rates, even if you do use a social media influencer, are much, much less than, say, advertising if you were going to advertise. Our experience has been a little different. So because we're going maybe with a philanthropic social justice outreach to something they really believe in, that they come, maybe their dad's or mum's a doctor. I don't know, maybe they were a cancer patient when they were younger. So that finding the real thing that motivates them is crucial. And we work with these nano influencers, as I mentioned, for D.R.E.A.M, which were doctors, and D.R.E.A.M was dealing with Oxygen for Africa, and the work that they do in about 13 countries there. And so it resonated with the doctors. So they charged a little bit to cover admin costs, but if they were going to charge $1,000, they charged $75 just to cover admin. And so I think, and it also depends on how educated the particular social media influencer is. But we've generally not paid a lot at all, and they've been really good to deal with. We also work with a company that it's like a first cousin to us. I have no interest in them other than I want to support them. Angela Fisher, she's fantastic with getting influencers on board. She used to be many years ago the head of talent relations for MTV, I think, in VH1. And we've worked with her for many, many years and found it to be a very pleasant and an experience that's brought results for our nonprofits.
So I do want to get into, because you did bring up right before we started the show, a cause that you are currently working on regarding voting rights. I do want to get into that. But first, just one more question for the folks out there who might be doing this for the very first time. Any tips, anything, I mean, besides read your book, anything that you can say to them that would let them feel a little bit more comfortable or excited about entering this world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk to people as well. I mean, I can't talk to everybody that wants to have a talk, but I've done talks. For example, I was at Oxford University at the Skull World Forum in April of last year. I did a talk for about 30 different organizations about how they could do this. And afterwards, I had 2 one-hour sessions with this wonderful group called Airlink out of Miami, which coordinates all the airlines to provide planes for disasters. And nobody's ever really heard of them. They do amazing jobs. And when you're sitting on LaGuardia runway thinking, gosh, we're an hour late, if you knew Airlink and the work that American Airlines do with them, you might have a cooler attitude. So basically, Airlink, I had two conversations with them, and then they went out and they got Harrison Ford, who's a flyer, and that was very helpful for them in raising awareness. In fact, it's fairly recent; it's still going on. So what I'd say is, you can do it. It's not anything particularly special that you have to be in the entertainment business. Just go and do it. Try it out, and you'll succeed. Just a bit of perseverance, but be intentional about it. If you think of it as just something on the side, it is not going to happen that well. But if you focus and say, we've got this thing coming up in, say, 6 months, I think you need a bit of bandwidth and a bit of runway to do it, and have a positive attitude. You'll be successful, I think.
Paul, what did you learn about yourself while writing this book? Because you've had a wealth of experience. You've done this. You're not somebody just telling others what to do. You've walked the walk. But in the process of creating your book, what did you discover about yourself?
Well, it's a good question, and one that probably needs therapy. But from my kind of superficial answer, I did it in the mornings, early mornings and weekends, because I was running businesses and working on movies, music side of movies, and music, which is one of my passions. I really love writing. I hadn't written for many, many years. I mean, I've written memos, emails, white papers, but actually writing in nonfiction and telling stories, that's really what we all do. We all have our narratives. And we work, for example, with a wonderful director, actor, Anna Devere Smith. And one of the questions Anna always asks when she meets someone is, what's your story? And so for me, the writing of stories and the narratives, and creating maybe new narratives that are not quite exactly the same, was really an enjoyable thing. And then the other thing I learned was, although we had offers to publish this book by traditional publishers, I like control. I really wanted to know that the cover design was mine. It came out when I wanted it to come out, and that was definitely a learning journey, but one that I enjoyed mainly, and met some wonderful people along the way. So I think those two things.
Now, as for what you're working on next, I would love to learn more about what you're doing in the world of voting rights, because that's something that is affecting everybody possibly on the entire planet with the next election cycle. What's going on there?
Yes, well, there's two main projects apart from the music stuff, which I'll leave to one side. One is that I'm working on a second book, and this is going to be, I think, it's not quite formed fully, but it's probably going to be in-depth interviews with different influencers on their philanthropy and social justice work, to show community organizations and different nonprofits how to work with influencers and other influencers, how they can be in the philanthropic world. And we're in discussions with some well-known folk to co-author that. On the voting side, this was something, and I think this comes back to my situation where I was saying, just do it. So I'm obviously a Brit by my accent, but I've lived in America much longer. I have American citizenship. I've been here nearly 40 years. And I was upset when one of the administrations removed themselves from the World Health Organization, which because of polio, I'm a very big proponent of the benefits they have in saving children's lives. And I just started a voting organization, not for one political party, but just to get out the vote. And so we've been working in Georgia, and now we're about to go into Arizona with the Entertain Impact Advocacy Alliance to get people to register to vote. And we have used local influencers there. So, for example, in Georgia, to get out the vote for the Black faith-based community, we got ministers, we got people like Kerry Washington involved, well-known national figures. But we also, in each kind of county, there's about 100 plus counties in Georgia, we got the barber and the cake maker, people in their local community, coming back to your first question, that can really make a difference, that really can influence people to act. So that's what we're doing in that world. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous about the upcoming election, and I hope we can find a lot of common ground and maintain democracy.
Yes, that's a good way to phrase it without. We're on YouTube too, so we don't want to get demonetized mentioning some names.
No. We're totally nonpartisan.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what's important. And like you said, just getting people to realize in some of these communities that their voice and their vote matters. I think the disillusionment a lot of times is a key factor. And by bringing in some of the local folks, I think you're on the right track there.
Thank you.
I want to say too, okay, so you mentioned your book cover, and I got my facsimile of it behind me.
Yes, nice drawing.
I love the title too, Good Influence. It kind of has a little bit of a hearkening back to the idea of good trouble. So it's this whole idea. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's the tone I got when I read the title. That's kind of like what resonates.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Good Influence has been a title for 3 or 4 years. There's the book, of course, and there's the Book Fest. That's your Book Fest. They won an award there, so thank you very much. So yes, the idea is that we have choices in life. We can influence for good, and we can influence for other than good, and we make this choice. But I'm of the view that people are intrinsically good, and that we will use that influence for good. You mentioned Good Trouble, and that is a documentary that was made, I think, John Lewis, and that is by a company called Participant Media, which I've headed music up for 15 years on a friends basis. They do things like the RBG and the Obama one that won the Oscar, American Factory, and Green Book. So all my stuff is mission driven. Even the music side, where I was involved with a group called Made in Memphis Entertainment, is to bring music back to Memphis and to give BIPOC folk an opportunity in the music business that they wouldn't otherwise have. So everything is mission driven these days.
Excellent. I love the musical aspect of everything as well. Honestly, there's so many different factors of what you've done with your career and your life and all of the different causes that you've associated with. We could probably have 10 of these conversations to dig deep into each of them. But Paul, I have a question. It's one of my fun questions that I sometimes ask authors, but I think you answering it might be totally different, because for you might actually be able to manifest this quite easily. I usually tell authors that their answer cannot be Oprah, because everybody will say Oprah, but I'll ask if you could hand your book to any one person in the world and make sure they read it, who would that person be?
Right. Well, it would be easy to say ABCD actor. Yeah. And I have a lot of admiration for actors. I have a lot of admiration for people like Father Rick, who runs this hospital in Haiti that I'm involved with, and that Beyonce went to visit in 2015 and did a lot of good for the hospital. But really, I don't think I want to give you an answer of one person. I want to get it to as many people in the local communities as possible. And so I think maybe the one person that might be helpful would be, there's a National Council of Nonprofits, the guy, male, female, or they, who heads that. If they could take that book, read it, and distribute it to their members, I think that would be a leverage position. So I kind of would like that, I think.
National Council of Nonprofits.
Council of Nonprofits, local community nonprofits. That's the aim of the book. That's what I want to get the information to.
Great answer. And you're right. Usually people are plucking out a political figure, a leader, a celebrity. So I love it how your book kind of flips that around, because that really is what matters, is those folks in that realm and on that local level. Okay, Paul, we're running against the clock. Can you tell people where they can find out more about you, find your book? Give us your details.
Sure. PaulMKatz.com has details about me and a lot of those resources. I really want people to take these resources. They don't cost anything. All the stuff I do is pro bono these days. And then if they want to find the book, Amazon, bookshop.org, or bookshop.com, I think you probably know that better than I do, but it's a local bookshops. And also it's on Audible as a audiobook. Those are probably the best places.
All right. Excellent. And good to know it's on Audible. I didn't realize that. I got a couple of credits that are burning a hole in my pocket. So I'll go grab a copy. Paul, it has been so delightful talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. I appreciate it.
It's been really fun. Thank you so much for all you're doing, Desiree.
Oh, you bet. You bet. And thank you, everybody, as well, for being with us. You can find out more about us on the website. That is booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and don't forget YouTube. Ring the bell. Make sure you subscribe. Never miss a show. Also, sign up for our Webby award-winning Books That Make You newsletter. And that way you'll get the recap of shows, plus giveaways, contests, and all sorts of fun stuff. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.